All right, guys, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of our guest speaker today. Can all students mute their microphones, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, our guest today is Mr. Charles Smith. He's the Assistant District Attorney. Now, in the United States, a district attorney or state's attorney is the chief prosecutor for a local government area, typically a county like Cumberland County. So the exact name of the office, it varies by state. Each classroom, each Google Classroom has a video that was posted by your teacher. You're going to leave this window open, go over to your Google Classroom to watch that video. Then we'll come back here and Mr. Smith will be here and ready to answer your questions.
They may not need to go to Google Classroom, Miss Thomas. The link is posted in the chat.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
You're
So
welcome.
you can go to the chat and okay, I see it. Posted by Mr. Carter at 1:03 p.m. Go ahead and watch that link.
It says we have to ask for permission.
All right, so try going to your Google Classroom if you're not able to access it there.
I think I was off for a moment there. If they need to request permission, go ahead and request permission and
you'll grant it.
one of us will grant it. I'm not sure who has to do it, whether Miss Butler.
We can also, hi, Miss Wright. We can also present it on this screen if that's easier. I can share my computer screen and just press play.
The problem with presenting it is there won't be any sound.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we're doing it this way. All right, so just go ahead and request permission if it asks you to do so, and it will come to whomever has the permission, whether Miss Butler or me.
Okay, I have to go through and click all of them. Give me just a second. I'm clicking them now.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Wright, you can one of the ways you could do it, you could probably use the phone as a speaker, so you could use the phone to join, and then you could present your screen. So it could work that way as well, by presenting your screen and using your phone as a speaker. So you can use that if you want to show it from here.
Oh.
And everybody will hear it.
Okay.
I just turned the link sharing on, so someone try to watch it and see if it's public now.
It's public now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Quenisha.
You're welcome.
All right, are we all finished with the video? Has everyone had a chance to watch the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, but I'm not finished.
No, ma'am, I'm not finished yet. I'm
Yes,
not
ma'am.
finished either.
It'll Chopper.
I'm not finished.
Okay. Can we wait another 2 minutes, Miss Butler? Is that okay? Okay.
I'm done with the video.
The persons who are finished watching, you can go ahead and start typing your questions in the chat section. All right, I think it's safe to say we can now turn over to Mr. Smith.
I see.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Good afternoon. Thank you for
Hey.
joining us.
No problem. Glad to be here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes,
Sweet.
sir.
Yes.
So the questions will be on this side. You can just scroll down.
Okay.
So I'm seeing a question from Adamaya. Are you looking at the questions, Mr. Smith, or do you want me to read
I
them?
can see one from
Okay.
Seju and Zainel, maybe.
Mhm.
Okay, the first question. Can everyone see the questions, or I can read it? If you were to lie as a witness, what crime would you be charged with? That is called. It's called perjury, and it's not something you see every day. I mean, part of the problem is actually knowing that they're lying. But if you lie on the stand, you could be charged with perjury, and that's a felony. So that is what you'd be looking at. That was a good question. Zainel Lennon, how many cases would you complete in 1 week? It kind of depends on the week. I would say I will probably handle about 100 cases, but as far as not every case is completed on the first court date, sometimes cases are continued because they're trying to hire an attorney and they haven't had enough time, or we're trying to get evidence together. So maybe close out maybe 30 or 40 a week, something like that, maybe more, somewhere in that ballpark. Walter Lee Klein, is it every day, and is it tiring? It's I'll be in that courtroom Monday through Friday, and it can be tiring, but I have a good support staff, and I enjoy doing what I do and helping people where I can. So it's tiring, but it's rewarding. So it works out. Are there cursing, Lamont McLean? You're not supposed to curse in court. There is. If you're disruptive in court or curse, a judge could hold you in contempt of court, is what it's called. And potentially, if the judge finds that you're in contempt of court, you could look at 30 days in jail. That's the maximum punishment for that. Other things like if your phone goes off, the judge, if he wants, because you're supposed to have your cell phones turned off during court. So anything that's disruptive, cursing would kind of be in that category. You could potentially be held in contempt of court. That rarely happens unless it's really bad. Judges aren't trying to fill the jail with people who are just disruptive in court. There's enough people committing crimes to that's better use for the jail space. Alex Keaton, what is the most common crimes you see? For what I do in that courtroom, domestic violence, I probably see mostly a charge called assault on a female. If a man were to hit a woman, it's called assault on a female. If a woman hits a man, it's a simple assault. And I probably see more violence from the man hitting a woman. And that actually is a more serious charge. I think the law kind of takes into account that men are generally maybe physically larger and more capable of doing harm. So they make that a more serious charge. And that's probably what I see the most of. Janice Wright asked a good question. What is a felony? Crimes, there's two groups for crimes. I know I mentioned the word felony earlier when I was talking about perjury. More serious crimes are called felonies, and less serious crimes are called misdemeanors. Felonies there's class A felonies all the way to class I. So, A, B, C, maybe 10 classes of felonies, and there's 4 classes of misdemeanors. There's an A1 misdemeanor, 1, 2, and 3. And felonies are more serious. Y'all are asking some good questions. Let's see. Maybe I'm not listening. Okay, I'm sorry. I missed some. Okay. Naja Danelle, is being attorney a hard job, or after the first day, does it become easier? It's a hard job. I think you just get more. I think you get more used to it. You get accustomed to what you do, and like with anything else, you become better with experience. So I don't know that it becomes easier. I think that you become better at your job. And I've been an attorney for about 3 years. I graduated from law school in 2017, in May 2017, so about 3 years ago. Kingston Lovelace said, on the first day, were you nervous? I was. I'm not naturally, I wasn't before I started really huge on public speaking, but that's something you really have to get over, and something that you get used to. So I was nervous the first day. You're talking in a room full of people you don't know, and that can be nerve-wracking, but you get used to it. Has there been any physical arguments? Sequoia Anderson asked that. Not in the courtroom. I've heard arguments in the hallway. So back behind where the audience is, there's a hallway back there. And sometimes you'll hear commotions and yelling. And that's where I think in the video I talked about the bailiffs. There's bailiffs in every courtroom, and they're all throughout the courthouse. They're at the entranceways, making sure people don't have any weapons on them when they come in. They're in the hallways. So that's where the bailiffs come in to protect other people. So there have been some fights, but I haven't seen them in the courtroom. What would you estimate to be the monthly amount of completed cases? Lucas asked that. Maybe I'll probably go through 300 cases a month, and hopefully, complete maybe 100, 150 of those, because cases are coming in every week. So you really try to complete as many as you can when they come in front of you, just because you know that the work is going to keep coming. Lauren Thomas asked, what subjects do students need to be good at to become a district attorney? For me, I was a little bit, you probably need to be a good writer and a good reader. I was always better with history and English. I think those are two, particularly English, because you want to be able to write, and that's a big part of the job. Political science, I guess, would kind of be sort of like social studies or history, sort of that area. I would say that's pretty common for an attorney, more so maybe than math or science. Pablo Gomez, how can you stay at work with the virus going on right now? That's a good question. We have limited the number of people coming into the courtroom, so there are certain rights people have when you're charged with a crime. You have the right to know what you're charged with, and you have the right to ask for an attorney or decide that you're going to hire an attorney. And some of those hearings we have to have within a certain amount of time, just under the Constitution. So we still have those hearings, but they limit the number of people coming to the courtroom. Everyone has to wear a mask. So we're doing the best we can to keep our distance. But most cases have been continued farther out into June or July. Janice Wright asked, how many rooms are in the courthouse? There are a lot of rooms in the courthouse. I think there's 12 or 13 courtrooms, but there's offices throughout the courthouse, so that there are a lot of rooms. I believe it's 5 stories or six stories. So there's a lot of people in the courthouse. Quenisha Graham Shipman asks, why do people with money get a public attorney? What if that public attorney doesn't get enough of info as attorneys, the ones that's paid for? Well, people when you get assigned a public defender or a public attorney, it's kind of on you to make sure you go and meet with them. They give you a contact sheet in the court when you ask for a court-appointed attorney, and they give that to you. They give you a contact sheet, and then you call and set up an appointment with them, just like you would if you went to an attorney's office and paid for them. So you still have an opportunity to meet with that public attorney without paying for them, but it's kind of on you to set up the meeting. There's a lot of people who ask for a public defender and they don't go and set up a meeting, and that is a disadvantage because that they need, in order to represent you and come up with a good defense, they need to know a little bit more about you and about your side of the story, because there's always 2 sides. So sometimes if you get a public defender, if you don't go and set up that meeting, maybe you are disadvantaged. But if you do what you're supposed to and call them and set up that meeting, I think it all works out about evenly. I see the questions went away. I don't know if I did that. Okay, hang on. I got it back. Out of 20 cases, how many people do you send to jail daily? That depends. There's a lot of other options other than jail. So if someone is found guilty, they can be placed on probation. They can be sentenced to do community service. It's not necessarily they go to jail or prison. So it just kind of depends. But maybe out of 20, 2 or 3 go to jail. Other people, maybe more than that, maybe 4 or 5, and then others that will be placed on probation. Let's see. Lloyd Carter asked, how long is a felony or misdemeanor kept on a person's record? How can it affect a young person later on in life? That's a good question. Felonies and misdemeanors, they're always on your record. Now, that's after you turn 16 or 17. If you're a juvenile and you're charged as a juvenile, when you become an adult, those convictions or those charges aren't on your record. But once you're 17, 16, 17, somewhere in that range, any felony or misdemeanor that you're even charged with is going to be on your record, and it can make it harder on you to go to college or to get a job, because people are going to run background checks, and so it definitely can affect you later on in life. Speaking of assault, what would it be if a woman hit a man so the man hit back? Would it still be assault on woman or self-defense? That would kind of depend. I've seen it both ways, where they'll say it was self-defense, but a lot of times if the officers respond, the officers weren't there when all this happened. They just come to the house and both people have injuries. they'll probably charge both people. And then each person, and so that makes it hard for me, because if they want to testify against the other, my job is just to let the man tell his story and let the woman tell her story, and then the judge decides kind of which is more credible. Sometimes it's obvious, if say the woman has really bad injuries and the man has scratches, and you can kind of tell they're like self-defense marks, they won't do that. But if both parties are bruised or bleeding, I mean, they'll probably charge both and let both kind of tell their story. So that kind of just, I would say, case by case. Zachary Earls, how do you become a lawyer? You need to go to law school. So you would go to college, and then that's 4 years. Then you'll do 3 years of law school, and then each state has their own test, basically making sure that you're qualified and you know the laws of that state. It's called the bar exam. So once you pass the bar exam, you can then become an attorney, and then you can practice in court. Let's see. Have you ever had to go to court before you became an attorney? Sequoia Anderson asked that. I did have a speeding ticket one time, so I was in court on a speeding ticket, but nothing more serious than that.
If you had been to court, would you, for more serious things, would you have been able to pass to become an attorney? Tell us about the ethics part.
If you do go to court or you're charged with a crime, that doesn't mean you can never be an attorney. You still can, but there is part of the bar exam is called a character and fitness, and so you will have to interview. And if they say that this isn't someone we think should be an attorney because of some things in their past, you may not, even if you pass the bar exam and all the laws, they may not pass you. They may say, we question his character. So
Does that include suspensions?
Sorry?
Does that include suspensions from school?
No, probably not. Miss Butler asked if that includes suspensions from school. I don't know that they go that far into your background check. It's probably best policy not to get suspended from school, but they do run a thorough background check. I'll tell you that. I will say that. So you don't want to have too many skeletons in your closet. Dalvin Jones, what would happen if both sides are correct? What would happen? I guess you mean if both sides were injured, if there was a fight and the judge thought both people were hit, he'd probably find both people guilty. Now, there is one sort of twist to that. If you are if two people are in a fight and you run the chance of probably incriminating yourself. So if you said, well, I hit him, then he hit me. If you're on the stand and you say that, well, you just said that I hit him. So if you're charged and someone else is charged, and in order to testify, you're also going to kind of point the finger at yourself, you have a right not to self-incriminate, and so you don't have to testify. And that would probably result in both cases just being dismissed. If both parties say, you know what, I don't want to testify because I would also incriminate myself, I don't have any evidence to present, so the state at that point would probably take a dismissal. So that's kind of an interesting thing that sometimes happens when both people are fighting. How long have I been at this job? Zamira Alford, 3 years. Andrew Harris, what made you become an attorney? Probably what I enjoyed in school, like I said earlier, was English and history. I was good at those subjects, so that kind of pushed me toward being an attorney. My grandfather was an attorney and my mom is an attorney, so I had some family influence as well. Janice Wright, a question from my son. What is the youngest person you've seen charged with a crime? I've probably 16 is the youngest I've seen charged as an adult. There is a whole separate juvenile court and courtroom, and there is a person from my office who's also an assistant district attorney who handles those cases. So I don't, she would be, I don't know how young she's seen, but to be charged in my courtroom, you have to be at least 16.
But you can still be charged if you're younger.
You can be charged if you're younger. You just wouldn't be, you would be charged as a juvenile. You wouldn't be charged as an adult. Okay, answer that. If you do, Darian Purvis, if you do not have an attorney, how are you able to defend yourself? the law really does what it can to make sure that you have an attorney. So they will allow you to apply for a court-appointed attorney, so you don't have to pay. An attorney can be provided for you if you don't make enough money, and if you're looking at maybe going to jail. So they really try to encourage you to get an attorney. If you want to defend yourself, you can, but you're going to be held to the same standard as an attorney. So you have to ask questions the right way and get things into evidence the right way that maybe you wouldn't know how unless you had been trained properly. So the law really does encourage people to, if they can't afford an attorney, get a court-appointed attorney, and judges will encourage that as well. Let's see. Language person, skeletons in your closet. Pablo Gomez, excuse me, skeletons in your closet. Not literally. So that just means that's insane. So you don't want people to like things you don't want people to know. If you ever did something bad and you kind of hid that away, that's sort of what the expression means. So if you were to apply, I think I said that when I was talking about the bar exam.
So if you were to steal, if you were to be kicked out of
Right.
school, if you were to do anything that's against the law, that can come up in your record.
Right.
So you have to follow the law and not break the rules.
Right.
Because they'll look at that. That's all that means. My
character and fitness exam. So I had never, I was very clean, but I had a speeding ticket in Virginia. And it was maybe 7 years ago, and they knew about that. I mean, and that's not in North Carolina. That was a different state. And yeah, a speeding ticket's not the end of the world. That's not going to really reflect on my character, but they do their homework. I mean, they know about it. And he actually asked me, he was like, and I told him ahead of time, and he said, yeah, we had seen that. So they already knew, but they asked me to see if I was honest. So, stuff like that, they'll find out. Let's see. Okay, a juvenile offense remain on a person's record. That they will close that out when you become an adult. So when you turn 16, your juvenile record, I will not know that moving forward. So that is closed off once you're an adult. That's not something that's going to stay on your record forever. If someone was charged as a juvenile, what's the longest they could go to jail? That really depends on what you're charged with. If you something very serious, that they may bind you over. So say you're 15, there's some crimes that they'll say, we're going to treat you as an adult, even though maybe you're a juvenile. Like if you murdered somebody, that's a very extreme example. But they could say that, this is a serious enough crime. You acted like an adult. We're going to hold you to the same standard as an adult. So, it's never a good idea, even as a juvenile, to start picking up stuff. But generally, juveniles probably aren't looking. There's a lot more. The juvenile system's looking a lot more at reform. So before going to jail or
explain what the word reform means.
They're going to work with you. So
reform means they want to change your behavior. They don't just want to punish you. They want to help you make better choices.
Right. So the juvenile system is geared a lot more towards like you might live in a halfway home, or before sending you to prison or juvie, like if you want to call it that, they'll work with you a lot more with reform versus punishment and putting you in jail. So that's not really the first option a lot of times with juveniles. Is it required for every attorney to work as a public defender or prosecutor? Andrew Harris asked that. No, you don't have to. I think it's really good experience because you get to be in the courtroom every day. And you get to meet all the judges and other attorneys that are in this area. So I think it's a good idea for experience reasons, but no, you don't have to. You can do, you can start out however you want, really. How many people have fought in court? Skylar Campbell asked that. I've never really seen a physical fight in the courtroom. Like I said earlier, I've heard commotions in the hallway, and that's where the bailiffs will step in. And the bailiffs have guns and are armed, so they're there to protect the attorneys, the judges, but also the other people in the audience, the people that are there with cases. So they're there for everybody. Sequoia Anderson asked a good question. What will happen if you didn't show up to court? Well, if you miss your court date, the judge can issue an order for your arrest. So if you don't show up, And a lot of times that order for arrest, they won't go searching for you, but say you're stopped because you ran a stop sign or you're driving and you're speeding and they stop you. The police officer will run your name in his computer, and if he sees that you have an order for arrest, they'll arrest you and they'll take you to jail, and then you have to wait your new court date. Another thing, if you have a bad history of missing court, I talked a little bit in the video about bond and saying that before your trial, the judge may keep you in jail if you are a danger to community or if they think you won't come. And so one of the things they might look at is, well, have they ever missed court before? And if you've missed court a lot, that may weigh into whether or not you stay in jail. If you pick up a new charge, whether or not you're in jail before you're ever convicted of that. So that could have an impact in the future as well. Let's see. People to bill. Clear your record. Sequoia Anderson, is it possible to clear your record? It is. That's a little bit of a process. It's kind of complicated. It's called expungement. For certain crimes you have to wait a certain amount of time to clear your record, and also there's certain crimes that can never go off your record. Any crime involving assault is always on your record. Yeah, it can never come off. Doesn't matter what you do. Other crimes,
assault means
hitting somebody, any physical violence, that's not going to come off your record. Other crimes, you may have to wait like 10 years. But yes, there is a way. It's not a very fun process. The best advice would be just never to start with the record. Why is it required for a judge to be an attorney first? Well, judges are attorneys because they have to listen to the facts and what the witnesses say and apply those facts to the law. So they have to know the law. So they have to pass the bar. They need to be an attorney. That way they can apply the law fairly. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to do that. It's about, was a public attorney your first job? As I know, asked that. Yes, it was. This has been my first and only job. I've been there for about 3 years. Let's see, I think, anybody have any more questions? I think I've gone through most of them. Saju Delk asks, have you ever encountered a kid in court? The courtroom I'm in, kids are not allowed to be in because a lot of times you're dealing with pretty sensitive stuff. Maybe their parents are arguing or fighting. So no, I don't really deal with kids very often.
maybe a kid is a witness.
But I have dealt with children as witnesses because sometimes their parents are charged with neglect or abuse. And so, yes, I've worked with kids in the courtroom, and that can be challenging and sometimes difficult. You never want a child to have to testify against or be a witness against one of their parents, and really I really try to avoid that. If there's other ways to prove cases, I'd try to do that.
So child abuse is a form of domestic violence, is that right?
Child abuse is a form of domestic violence because if your mom or dad were to hit you, that's your family. So that would be and I don't mean spank, I don't mean like spanking or so, anything, but if it rises to a certain level, there may be a child abuse charge, and that kind of stuff would be in my courtroom, and I have to work with kids then. Zachary Earls, what will happen if you clear your name? Yeah. I guess if you clear your record like an expungement, it's just gone. If you're found not guilty, then yeah, I mean it shows up on your record that you were found not guilty. So you won't be held to have committed that offense. Sequoia Anderson, what is the worst case you had to deal with? Probably, going back, the child abuse and child neglect cases are really hard. I had one where a child fell into a pool, and it was a neighbor's pool, and the mom was charged with neglect because she didn't know what. Now the neighbor luckily was in her house and saw the child, the 3-year-old, fall in the pool and was able to save the child's life. That was a bad case. Any case of dealing children are probably the hardest I have to deal with. In your courtroom, is it only crimes, or do you also deal with lawsuits? I only deal with crimes. So if lawsuit, yeah, I only deal with crimes. So I don't deal with other kinds of lawsuits. Skylar Campbell, why do you have to judge the law? I think a better way to put it is you apply the law. So you don't really, the law is what it is, and you use the facts that you're given in a case, and you see how it fits within what the law says, and can you prove everything you need to prove in order to convict somebody. I think that's kind of what I try to do. So I don't really judge the law. I'm more try to apply it to certain facts. Marissa Sanders, how many years can you get up to in a crime? I mean, you can go to prison for life, depending on what you do. So it's really, there's certain very, very high penalties. You can go to jail for a long time or prison for a long time.
Wow, those were some great questions.
They were really good questions.
Right. I am really impressed. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith, for taking time out of your busy day, I'm quite sure,
problem.
Answer our questions and give us a tour. I, even as a teacher, really enjoyed it, and I found it interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And you guys asked really, really good questions. I enjoyed talking to you. If you have any other questions, talk to Miss Butler, and I'll, reach back out to you guys. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Miss Butler.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, that was good. Thank you for attending and participating. I'm really impressed with all the questions that were asked.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
I'm sure each respective Google Classroom will have maybe a follow-up question. This was the second in our series, so we have another interesting virtual field trip lined up for next week, Friday. So I'm hoping to see everyone there as well.
What kind of fish do we have next week?
Can't tell you as yet. You'll find out next week, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Continue being safe and have a good weekend. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye.
Miss you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
See you later, Jeffrey.
Stay safe. Remember to wash your hands.
Yes, remember to wash your hands.
Bye, guys. Stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Dalvin.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.